here I am with another vlog in which I'm still getting used to making all these late vlogs, mostly because, like I said before, I am a little bit now that I decided to not go into matinee movies, especially of AMC, because like I already told you, the How to Train Your Dragon remake costing me $17 for matinee. That was kind of like the last straw, and I decided that from now on I'm gonna only watch movies on the Tuesdays to the Tuesday discount, which it cost me $850. And lo and behold, things on AMC also gets the services now. It gets worse because now they did announce, and I also saw that they're gonna put more ads, in which it gets annoying, considering that AMC had the tendency to that they always show before the movie. They always take like 30 minutes to to show all trailers, and honestly, this is getting ridiculous, and now they're gonna add kind of like no movie ads before the movie, and this is kind of ridiculous on AMC, but okay, that's kind of, but basically, yeah, that's kind of like the thing, and this is why now I try to not go to movies, matinee for first come first serve reviews and all this stuff, because honestly, like I said, I don't do it anything for YouTube stuff and all this stuff. I just do this mostly just for the fun of it. It's a hobby. It's a hobby. I like watching movies. I like watching, and giving my own thoughts. The good ones, the bad ones, and the ones that I do care. So this is why I'm not kind of like in a hurry, nowadays. The only thing that I only will do that mostly again if there's something like a movie that I am very, 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 very eager to see. And speaking of that, the funny thing is that I was planning to watch Megan 2.0, but mostly because I felt like I was kind of curious to watch that movie, considering that I thought that the last movie was okay from Blumhouse. But came this other movie that I've been hearing a lot of hype from it. People were calling it that it was probably one of the best movies that there is. And that movie is none other than F1. The movie, the movie based on Formula One. The high octane racing sport. I'm not exactly 100% knowledgeable about it, but I know. But everyone knows all these race sports and all this stuff. And believe it or not, that movie is directed by the guy. What was the name? Joseph Kosinski, the guy who gave us this great movie called Top Gun Maverick. And I do remember watching the trailer, but I thought it was like, okay, it doesn't 100% call me, but since there are people who are actually fans of F1s, then apparently this is why they hit the sweet spot. And so after hearing a lot of the good buzz that this movie had, and then I was beginning to ponder by saying that, okay, I had kind of like a bad streak some movies that didn't get me much. I came back from from How to Train Your Dragon remake, Lilo and Stitch remake, which they weren't good. They weren't good. Okay, maybe How to Train Your Dragon, but I was more salty about the payment. The last time was Elio, in which it was a disappointment. And it was a disappointment. Oh, here's something fun. Now that I mentioned Elio, I'll leave it aside, but here's something funny. I've been hearing that the reason why Elio wasn't as good as many people thought also is because this movie also had to deal with executive meddling. Which, the funny thing is that this Sunday I reunited with some of my friends, which we watched some random movie here and there, and I chose that, okay, let's revisit one of the worst movies that Disney has ever done. which is Chicken Little. Many people really dislike the movie and see if it kind of holds up or if it's as bad as it thought. And the funny thing is that Chicken Little also has kind of like the same problem with Elio, that it was a victim of executive meddling. Kind of weird, isn't it? But okay, I'm not here, to do something like that. I was gonna talk about, F1, and here's kind of like the good reputation that it had. So I was like, okay, fine. I go there, and trust me that it was good. This whole weekend, I was mostly inside the house, almost bored out of my mind because, number one, I had almost like no plans to do anything. I was looking to find stuff what I wanted to do, and two, it was very hot outside. The humidity is out of this place. I mean, yeah, it's summer. Summer is always like that. There are times that it gets kind of like a little bit too much that makes you not wanna leave the house. This day included, but still. I did manage to get out. I wanted to go through movies, especially considering the AMC discounts that I do now every Tuesday when I want to watch a movie. And lo and behold, instead of watching Megan 2.0, I decided to go with F1 because of the whole buzz that I've been hearing, and well. This movie deserves a score of F. It's an F. A total F. It's an F. An F for fantastic. Guys, this movie at once kind of became one of the best movies I have seen this year, and probably the best that I have seen this year. I had so much good things to say about this movie. This is the kind of movie that the reason why you kind of love movies, why you see people actually putting some good feelings into it. Is not exactly a movie that tries to bring kind of like some kind of pretentious lecture or something like that. It and using the technicalities, you can tell that they've been working with a lot of the practical stuff, some CGI here and there, but it wasn't technically abused or something like that. But combined with the adrenaline and the high octane feelings that this movie has, and also with some great sound mixing, this movie was more just a movie. It felt kind of like an experience, and I never felt something like that and for a long time. Because it is, and funnily enough, since it is from the same guy who gave us Top Gun Maverick, it has also made Top Gun Maverick something exciting, which is kind of like. You feel it. You like just like they did. It made you feel how you can feel with being on a jet plane. This one it does it with what was it with Formula One cars. It had almost that same effect, and well, it has a story. And okay, for better or for worse, and not to overhype this movie, the movie is basically just the basic sports thing. It's a sports story. It has kind of like the same thing. So you know what? Like I said many before, and I think that Roger Ebert kind of also said that you can make any copy of a movie. Any movie can have kind of like the same story or the same feeling, but what matters is the execution. If you done this kind of like the same formula, but it's done well enough to make you feel satisfied. Or you can show that it was done with legit passion or a legit way to showcase the good things that this movie has. It's acceptable. So this movie played the cards all right, and I came up really satisfied to the point that for a movie that it only has Sorry about that. I'm hearing something that kind of makes things feel vibrating. Maybe it's the neighbor or something like that. Okay, but the thing is that for a movie that is for a movie that's basically kind of like a just sports, it does what it needs to be. Oh yeah, now I remember. The movie, well, it kind of intimidates you because it's 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it does feel long. But thankfully, a movie that is that long sometimes it kind of gets excused depending on not only on how much you invest to it, but if the movie keeps you invested for doing the whole thing and you don't feel kind of like relatively tired, that's a gimme. And yeah, this can be tiring, but this one, it kept me on the edge of my seat and invested to it, that things really work well. So, so here is the basic premise of the story. It centers around this former Formula One racer named Sonny Hayes. He played by, of course, Brad Pitt. It is shown during the whole thing that something happened on the 90s. And then I'm not gonna go too much into detail just in case. But basically, he had something happen during. He almost get injured, and because of that, he lost. His life went spiral down, mostly on his health, his trauma, his mental health, and of course his reputation. He lost almost everything. And so he just became kind of like a drifter, a gambler. He lives in a van, and he just go racing on some petty stuff because he still loves racing. That is until his coach and friend, who played by Javier Bardem, he comes to him and say that, hey, I'm gonna give you one last chance. I'm gonna put you in this professional Formula One team that is struggling. It doesn't have many wins, and if they don't win these series of Formula One events, they're gonna shut them down. So basically, it kind of turns into an underdog story. The guy is like, okay, well, I'll go. So he goes there, and of course he has to partner up with this young guy who named Joshua. He's played by Damson Idris. Sorry, I like to watch IMDb because I'm not good with names. Again, how many times did I have to say that? And also there is the female engineer technician played by Carrie Condon. She played this character named Kate. And then it kind of turns to kind of like the basic sports formula that you see. You take a guy who is very experienced. You put it on a team in which one of the team members is basically an eager but kind of arrogant kind of guy who doesn't listen. The two butt heads. There is also kind of like the intelligent character who's kind of like in the middle of it and trying to keep the things together. And of course, there's ups and downs during the races and all this stuff. And of course, it's technically this teamwork. We gotta work together in order to reach the goal kind of thing. You've seen kind of like these. These typical kind of stories in a lot of sports, and people will kind of that trope, and yeah, I don't mind, because again, sometimes it is fine to just play with the basics, but make it good enough. And in this case, it works well because for the majority of the movie, it plays out the elements well. You get to know these characters. You get to know their motivations, their intentions, their why they do it, their hurdles, and how you hang out with them enough to even bond with them and not wanting anything to bad happen to them, and you just want them you just want them to win because heaven forbid you don't want them to end up like the Stanley Cup from South Park. Yeah, that's kind of like the dark joke I'm going for. But don't worry, this movie doesn't pull your heartstrings because there's no sick kid kind of cliche into it, in which I'm glad they didn't do it because that kind of makes it a little bit manipulative. But anyway, let's start out, with some of the characters. Like for example, I will say in general that all of the actors, they're really good. Brad Pitt really showcases charm as Sonny. He's basically one of the main characters, and I like how they write him up like he's washed up and he's kind of get the chance to do it. But that because of the experience and his years, he's kind of like a more humble guy. He's not there just for the credit. He's just very passionate and he just likes to race. He just likes to race. He just wants to be part of it, and mostly because he wants to take that chance because he wants to. Because that inside of him, he does wants to pursue the goal to be the very best. Even though sometimes you can tell that he is stubborn in a way, or sometimes he feels like he is kind of in command or something. So let's say that this is what makes the charming character very flawed. And of course, it has that typical Brad Pitt charm that you get. I like Brad Pitt. I know that he was on some movies that were good. That for some reason the biggest movie I know him more is from Cool World, but that's mostly because that's the closest thing that he was on something that is from animation, which is kind of like my favorite genre. So that's the best way I can describe this guy, and his quote-unquote antithesis, but not exactly, enemy, is the character of Joshua, played by Damson Idris. And this guy, he was also really, he really puts it all. And you can tell that he's almost like the opposite, but at the same time, he basically was probably the mirror of Brad Pitt when he was younger. He's eager, he does it for the money, of course. You can tell that he lives in a rich house with his mother, and he likes to hang out with his friends, but the point is that he kind of is a little bit arrogant and very cocky, very hot-headed, so much that he even was kind of like dismissing Brad Pitt as you're too old or something like that. Why do I have to follow orders or something like that? He's pretty much just kind of like the guy who wants kind of be a poster boy. So he always had butt heads with Brad Pitt because he was trying to help him to show some humility. But at the same time, you understand him that he is in a position in which if he doesn't do well, he's gonna lose his job, of course, and you can tell that he also has some passion of racing, but sometimes, things like even social media and what they talk, it kind of comes into his head. Even Brad Pitt kind of warns him by saying that, dude, nobody cares. Just do what you want. You're here because you're racing and stuff like that. There's what other character did I talk about? Oh yeah, we got the character Kate McKenna, played by Carrie Condon. She's basically kind of like the middle management of between these two, and eventually love interest. Although that's technically kind of like the second part of it. She wants to prove herself that she's a technician because she basically brags herself that she's like the first tech engineer on the Formula One, and I'm kind of doubt it, but I don't know much about it. But basically she's kind of like the mediator between these two, but then you forming a relationship with Brad Pitt, in which she finds him kind of like arrogant, cocky. He doesn't know how to play with a team, but she's kind of like the straightforward, level-headed of everything, and of course it turns into kind of like the love interest and something like that, and you like it, and so much that probably my favorite part of the movie is when she tries to appease them by playing poker, especially because I forgot to mention that the Brad Pitt character, because he has this trauma that from a past incident, and he becomes kind of like a gambler, and you can tell that he also has a little bit of a emotional, kind of like an emotional support in which he always carries himself a set of cards. The set of cards doesn't necessarily tell you what it is, why. He's a gambler, but most of the time he's in a set of cards, that he's flipping, throwing it around or something like that, but then kind of it feels kind of like an emotional attachment to it. The movie is kind of clever enough to not shoehorn in your head on what that means, but judging by the personality and the kind of character he is, you kind of understand. Other characters that are there are, for example, Javier Bardem playing the manager, Ruben, in which he's basically kind of like the producer who would say, "Hey, come with me," or when things doesn't work out, he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Or the whole movie you see him, pulling his hair, almost getting frustrated when things doesn't go right, or he's like, "Oh man, I can't support you, man. Why?" Okay, what other character there is? There is Sarah Niles, who plays Joshua's mother. Tobias Menzies as another guy. Well, these are some of the characters that Absol Salis, he plays not Absol Salis. Samso Kayo, he plays Joshua's cousin who likes to hang around with him. He's always kind of like the fun-loving but supportive cousin. There's some other character here and there. But these are most of the ones that I'm telling you. I do also have to say that I've been hearing that there are some real for F1 racers who they also make cameos here and there. So that's a gimme. And well, this one I caught with the cinematography. That is, this is the movie's biggest selling point, the biggest sweet spot, because, like I said, it uses the same thing that Top Gun Maverick did, in which instead of relying on CGI for all these dangerous stunts, they really put the cameras on real F1, and you feel the adrenaline thanks to the sound mixing. It feels like you're there. You feel the adrenaline. You feel, and of course, this also has some of the best music, because the music is composed by the legendary Hans Zimmer. And some of his best sounds that you could ever see, and yes, and the pacing again, you get invested so much on the whole thing that you hear the drama, and then comes the racing, and the movie, it balances itself, into the moment in which, okay, we got a drama, then let's go for the racing, and then we go for some drama, then racing, and it's a good drama. It's not a good drama. It just kind of tells a story, and it makes you hit with the character, especially both with Brad Pitt and Dancer Idris. These are kind of like the heart of the characters, and which also helps out with the thematic of the movie, which it's about teamwork, trying to find out what fulfills you in your life, if it's technically the fulfilling your money or being number one. Find some, in the case, for example, Brad Pitt had to find why did he come for, why he loves racing, why he had to overcome his shadows of incident that basically put him into the slump, and he decides to gamble, and he finds kind of like this opportunity, almost like a redemption of himself, and at the same time trying to teach humility to this new upstart a young prodigy but in which he's arrogant, he's cocky, he basically doesn't want to listen. He thinks that everything, kind of like the world surrounds on him, but at the same time, he's also three-dimensional because he just don't feel. The best way I can describe it is that he just had this feel of adoration, but he kind of forgot that there is technically this love to racing. Yeah, let's face it, being a Formula One is not exactly how can I say, the most safe of them all. It is a dangerous sport, and the movie actually shows a little bit the danger of it, and that you make the wrong move and you can be heavily injured, or worst case scenario, someone can either be paralyzed or dead. At least, but not too gruesome, but at least in a sense that it showcased these kind of consequences, and also that everyone also they're doing their job, their part, and and by the way, also I really kind of like the technicality. And for a guy who is not into Formula One sport racing, and even by watching it hooked me in. I got invested about how it works, and I want to even know how many of those things are accurate. I'll say. Maybe some exaggerated things here and there, but it intrigued me. Although that in order to not overhype this movie, I do have to admit that like I said, the formula is very familiar, but again, it's familiar for me because I watched so many movies in my life that I can even understand kind of like the most basic structure. But as long as it is good, it's fine, and I think the newcomer will find it satisfying, at least. Some other. I did hear that there was some noticeable CGI, but I didn't even notice, so I don't know about that. And some people technically will say that the third act kind of rushes things a little bit. I don't know. I didn't notice. I think that we gave information enough in order to give it a decent third act. And by the way, that final third act racing was great. It really put me into my head. And you hang with these characters. If you get invested with the character, you feel the adrenaline, and you just want the better for them. And this is good filmmaking when you make you care of fictional characters. And by the way, yes, it's fiction. It's a fictional story. It's not based in any real life. They just decided to make a movie out of it. So honestly, I have nothing much to say because I don't want to spoil too much. It got me invested on how Formula One kind of works. And as for the movie, it's engaging, it's fun, it has the adrenaline, it put me in a right mood, and for me, that is a sure winner for a trophy, for probably this year's best.